So let's look at module bundling. There is a lot of module bundlers out there, like Webpack and any other tools, but by far my favorite is Rollup. And what module bundler allows you to do is to bundle your JavaScript into a single file, meaning that tool like Rollup or any other will look into your imports and it will bundle everything into a single file called bundle. Before anything, let's do some cleanup. First of all, I'm going to clean up my tsconfigs. I don't need any more them being split. So I'm going to keep my default one, tsconfig.json, and I'm going to remove some configuration as this can be easily configured from the level of rollup. So we definitely don't need that. We definitely don't need watcher. And we can probably delete these two. And we can delete source maps, so like so, and we can delete module type. We need to install Rollup, and we can do that with npm i --save dev Rollup. We also need a plugin for Rollup to be able to deal with TypeScript. So we're going to do Rollup plugin TypeScript, and let's install that. In order to use Rollup, we will need configuration files. So I'm going to create a new one called rollup config.js. Now we need to import our TypeScript plugin from rollup TypeScript. Next, Rollup expects to have exported an array of objects or a single object for configuration. So we're going to do export default, and we're going to do an array, and we're going to have our configuration object here. First thing Rollup needs, it needs to know which file to compile. So if we say input, we can say that we want to compile from our sources from TypeScript folder. We want to compile app.ts. Next, we need an output, and those going to be configuration specific to our output file. So first is dir that tells Rollup where to store our compile files. So we're going to say public/js. Next, we need a format, and this is a format of our modules. So just for now, we're going to keep ES6 modules. So I'm going to say ESM. We can enable source maps with saying true, like so. Because we are using a plugin, we need to pass array of plugins. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say TypeScript, like so. Now we've got a couple of options how we want to deal with our TypeScript configuration. So this plugin allows us to define our configuration within a past object. But because we already got our configuration in tsconfig file, what we can do, we can say tsconfig and pass this file, and plugin will use our tsconfig.json. So let's do this, tsconfig.json. So with all this in place, we should be able to compile our files. So we can say npx rollup. We need to pass a configuration file. So we're going to say config rollup.config.js. And looks like we've got some sort of warning, unknown output options. Yes, because we've got the source maps instead of source maps. So let's run this again. It looks like that worked fine. And we can see JavaScript files have been compiled. Let's have a look at bundling. Let's say we're going to have a module which we're going to import in our app.js, and I'm going to call this foo again. This is a very good name. Okay, let's call it export default class foo. And again, constructor log this is full. Right. Now, if we're going to import that in our file, import full from full, like so, and we're going to instantiate this class, new full, and let's compile this. Let's have a look what actually happened. So in our app.js, we can see that Rollup is being very smart. It will find our module, it will inline it, and everything is going to be self-contained in a single file. So this is basically what module bundling is. Let's update our package.json with our script. So before we were using Typescript directly to compile our assets, and we had a watcher, and we had our build script, which was using rimref clean and compile. So instead of using Typescript, we can use Rollup instead. So we're going to say npx rollup --config rollup.config.js, and we're going to do exactly the same for our watch for now, like so. So now if we run our build, npm run build, we should be using Rollup. If I can type run build, we'll see that we're no longer using Typescript for compilation, but we are going through Rollup. Now, our watcher won't work. So if we run npm run watch, we only get one-time compilation. Sorry, npm run watch. So we only get one-time compilation. Rollup supports watch as well. So if we pass watch and try this again, we should start Rollup in watch mode. So again, like with Typescript watcher, we can go edit our files, and this should be compiled on the fly. And if we check, yes, it's working. Now, if we go back to our package.json, we had a way of executing different configuration for different environments. So there is probably 101 ways how we could go about it. We could pass an environment variable, but my favorite way of doing that is by passing additional CLI flag to Rollup. So if I do something like npx rollup -c, this should use our default configuration file, and I say I want to pass additional flag called dev. We should get a warning, unknown CLI flag, and we can actually pass additional flags if we name them correctly. So if we do config -our name, let's say this can be anything, but in our case it's going to be dev, this should keep Rollup happy. So we did pass the flag to Rollup. Now we need to be able to get that out in our config. So if I go to Rollup, we can do something very simple. We can actually try to get it from process argv. So if I do console.log and process and argv, we should get an array of all the CLI flags passed to it. Now, because we don't pass any value to our flag, we can do something very simple. We could do something like filter, or actually find, and we're going to be looking for our flag like so. So if element equals --dev, config .dev, we should get our flag, and looks like it's coming through in here. If we don't pass it, we should get undefined, and this is expected behavior. So now we can write a small helper function so we can detect if we're running in dev mode. So if I'm gonna do function, and I call this isDev, and I just gonna return our process and find, like so, and we are going to cast this into Boolean with double not, like so. And if we try to log this out, we should get either true or false. Is dev. So let's run this without dev flag. We get false. If we run this with our config.dev, we're gonna get true. So now with our helper function, we should be able to do this. Instead of source map true, say is dev, like so. So if we run rollup with config.dev, this will evaluate to true, otherwise will evaluate to false. So now we should be able to update our package.json. So if you go back to my scripts, when we run our watch command, meaning we're running in a dev mode, we can pass additional flag called config -dev. And now if we run npm run build, we should get our sources compiled without our source maps. And if we run npm run watch, we should get our sources compiled with source maps. Here we go. Next, let's minify our JavaScript files, and we can do that with plugin for Rollup called Terser. So what I'm going to do first is going to be npm I /save dev Rollup plugin Terser, like so. Once that's done, we can go to our rollup config and we can import that. So import Terser from rollup plugin Terser. Now, if we want to minify our JavaScript files, all we need to do, we need to pass Terser function to our list of plugins. Now, this will run on every compilation. If we want to run this only for our build task, what we can do, we can say if it's not dev, is dev. We can say minify our files, otherwise return null. And if we have a null in an array of plugins, the plugin will be skipped. So if I run npm run build, let's see our file, and looks like it's minified. And npm run dev, looks like our files are not minified. There is an improvement I would like to make. If we look at our rollup config, I will see for every input file, we need to actually include this in the configuration. So if we were going to add another file, let's say I'm gonna have a new file, say page1.ts, and let's do something like console.log. This is page. So if we want to compile this file, we would have to copy this object and pass our new input file, page1. And if we run this now, we should get our page1 script compile. Now, this is not ideal. Why? This can be very tedious when we have a lot of files, and every time we add a new file, we need to add this to a rollup configuration. So what I would like to do, I would like to get the list of the files from the directory and pass to my config. Now, let's make an assumption that all the entry files are going to live in our root folder of source ts, and all the modules are going to be living in some sort of subfolders. So what we can do, we can move our module files into a subdirectory. Let's, as an example, let's just create a module folder. So let's move our foo into modules, and let's update our imports, and we're gonna have to save this file like so. So now what we should be able to do in rollup, we should be able with node get the list of the files in our source/ts directory. And the way we can do that, we can say let files, and we are going to use a file system from Node, read there synchronously, like so. Now we're gonna have to import file system, and we can do that with import everything as fs from fs, like so. Now what we can do, we can pass the directory, which is going to be source ts, and if we try to console.log this, we should get all the files in this directory. So if we try to run npx rollup -c -config -dev, see what we get. Fs namespace reduce sync. I've got an error, like so. Let's try it again. And here we go. We've got all the directories and files. Now we don't care about directories. So what we can do, we can filter them out. And because read_sync, it will always return an array. It's going to be safe to just run a filter on it. Filter, we can say element. We're going to use path.ext name, and extension name of the element needs to equal to .ts. So now if we run this again, we should get only our entry files, our TypeScript files. Now what I would do next, I would take this out and put this into constants, something like directory equals src/ts. So then we can pass this in there, and additionally, after it was filtered, we can run a map, and for every element in the array, we're gonna return the +/ element. And if we run this now, we should get our files with a path. So now, once we've got the files, what we can do next, we're gonna have to check if we actually have any files. So if we're gonna say if not files.length, like so, we're gonna throw an error. So throw new error. We're gonna say no sources found in our directory, and we're gonna use this, but we need to use ticks, like so. So if we pass the folder that doesn't exist, we should get an error. Let's have a look, and looks like it's working. No such file or directory is gone there. So if we try to create this directory here, TSSS, like so, and because we don't have any sources file, we should get our thrown error, and this one is coming through. So let me delete that. Now, because we've got our list of files, what we can do, I'm gonna just comment this out, like so. What we can say export default, and we want to export an array, and our files is an array, so we can say files.map, and for every element we are going to return configuration object. So if I copy this, maybe not like that, let's look this, I'm gonna grab this, see, like so, and now we can delete that, and we need to pass our element, so like that. Now if we try to run Rollup, and let's just update our directory. If we try to run Rollup, we should have every single file in our root directory being compiled. So if I add another file, page2.ts, and let's say console.log page 2, and run Rollup again. Now we should be getting all the files inside our root directory, and all of them should be compiled. So now we've got everything configured. Let's look a bit closer at modules. So let's say I want to use this module in all my files. So like we did in app.ts, I'm going to grab the module and put it into this file and this file. And if we run Rollup again, and check our sources, we're going to see that app.js has the module bundled in, page.1 has the module in, and page.2 has the module bundled in. If this video helped you in any way, please make sure to smash that like button or even subscribe. As always, I will include the link into the GitHub repository in the description. Thank you for watching.